Hello, my name's Simon Kerins. It's just after 10:20 on Wednesday the 5th of September 2012. Welcome to SportsCall. It's nice to be back with you after having taken a break for a few weeks. I hope I find you well today, as we do what we do best here on SportsCall, namely round up the latest news in the world of sport. And you can follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. You can interact with us, and very shortly I'll be giving out full contact details. Perhaps this is the first time you've tuned into SportsCall. Maybe you've been told about it, you've been told how good it is. Maybe you were a listener back in 2010 when SportsCall aired on Ribble Valley Media on Monday evenings, both warm and cold, halcyon days. And unfortunately, due to the demise of Ribble Valley Media back in September 2010, it was necessary to come off air. Ribble Valley Media died, SportsCall seemingly died with it, but it was always my intention to resurrect the programme at the earliest and most suitable opportunity. And with that in mind, SportsCall relaunched in July of this year. And many thanks to all of you for getting in touch saying how much you're enjoying the new look programme. Unfortunately, you won't be hearing this live, you won't be able to interact live with me, but you will be able to get involved in next week's programme, and you can do that by emailing simonkerrinssportscall@gmail.com. That's simonkerrinssportscall@gmail.com. More information about us is available at www.simonkerrinssportscall.webeden.co.uk. That's simonkerrinssportscall.webeden.co.uk. You can also follow us on Twitter. Our address is at SKSportsCall. At SKSportsCall. So those are the means by which you can get in touch with me here on SportsCall, sharing your sporting news and views, your likes and dislikes, and much, much more besides. I will be reminding you of those contact details later on in the programme. What is SportsCall about then? Well, SportsCall gives you the opportunity to interact with us, your news, your views, as I said a moment ago, your likes and dislikes as well, both on local matters and on matters much further afield. We will, of course, be looking at the Paralympics, which are currently taking place down in London, following, of course, the great success of the Olympic Games just a few short weeks ago. And once again, I'm delighted to report it's been an extremely successful time for Team GB. Has it been a successful start to the season for Blackburn Rovers, Burnley, Accrington Stanley and Clitheroe? Well, we'll be finding out as we round up the latest football action in a few moments' time. We'll also be taking a look at the latest news in the Ribblesdale and Lancashire Cricket Leagues. They are, of course, in the final stages of the season. One championship has been decided. The other one is going right down to the wire this weekend. More on that very shortly. So, SportsCall, your opportunity to get in touch with your news, views, likes and dislikes. Your opportunity to participate in the programme. We are hoping to, over the course of the next few months, have another fans forum session. And of course, if you were a regular listener between August 2009 and September 2010, you will know just how popular the fans forum idea was. From time to time we would gather Blackburn Rovers and Burnley fans, yes, in the same room, and I would act as MC and peacekeeper as the two sets of supporters debated the latest goings on with their club, chewing the fat. And of course, at that time, both Blackburn Rovers and Burnley were in the Premiership. Unfortunately, both sides now find themselves in the Championship, but we will, of course, have at least two Rovers-Burnley clashes to look forward to in this 2012-13 season. Of course, if you follow any other team, in fact, if you follow what may be classed as a minority sport, SportsCall is still very much for you. Get in touch, share your news, your opinions. Perhaps you're involved in a team, you run a team, you participate either in a team or as a lone competitor. How's it going? Have you set a new personal best, or have you broken your best round of golf? Whatever it is, tell me about it. and I'll be only too happy to spread the word and share your news with your fellow Sports Call listeners. One other thing that I will be extremely happy to do is promote your charity news. If, for example, you are taking part in any kind of fundraising, tell me, send me all the relevant links, and I will make them available to your fellow listeners, and hopefully that will help in your fundraising campaign. But so without further ado, we shall begin the roundup of the last sporting week or two. It is, of course, just over 3 weeks since we last convened. And incidentally, you may recall, if you listened to that programme, which was recorded on the 10th of August, but straight after that I was dashing off to record an interview with Worley's Indian cricket all-rounder Wilkin Motta. Well, that discussion took place. It was an extremely interesting and enjoyable interview, and it will shortly be available for your listening pleasure on YouTube. I will make you aware of the appropriate links once that is up on the internet. And of course you can, incidentally, interact with us and listen to the shows not just directly on YouTube, but also via Facebook and Twitter. But so without further ado, let's take a look at the latest sporting news. And of course the Paralympics have been taking place in London. They started at the end of last week and they will finish this weekend. And it has been another great success for Team GB in the pool, on the cycling track, no surprises there, also in the Olympic Stadium, and also with archery and dressage and show jumping and so on and so forth. And it has, in my humble opinion, been just that, very humbling to watch. Some athletes with minor disabilities, other athletes with major disabilities, and they have done extremely well. Not just Team GB, but all the participants deserve nothing but credit and respect to what they have done. And for me, the most telling and in some ways the most poignant moment of the game so far came when I just happened to be flicking the TV channels the other evening, and I happened upon an interview with the Dutch footballing legend Johan Cruyff. And Cruyff had been watching, just ignore the phone in the background. We did say a few weeks ago that this might happen from time to time, somewhere else in the studio. We're not going to answer it, because it's nothing to do with me, and I won't let it distract from your listening pleasure. Returning to the Johan Cruyff interview, he was watching the blind football competition, and the incredible thing about it was the accuracy, the shooting accuracy and the skill of the participants. Now, I know that it is said that blind people are in some small way compensated for by having additional senses and having additional sensory skills and powers. Obviously, it's no compensation as such in terms of the loss of their sight, but all the same, it goes some small way to lightening their burden. And I understand as well that within the footballs there are some kind of rattles or ball bearings or something to help with accuracy and location and sensation. But some of the goals that have been scored at the blind football tournament have been nothing short of incredible. Some stunning goals, and Johan Cruyff was making the point that he in his heyday would have been proud to score such wonderful goals. And it just goes to show that not only is the Paralympics about celebrating disabled sport, but it's also about paying respect to the individuals and the teams concerned who have worked so hard. They are, of course, burdened and restricted in what they can do compared to the rest of us who are more fortunate, but it has been truly incredible to watch. And you think as well of Ellie Simmons, you think of David Weir, and I'm just naming those two. I could name many more people, but in many ways they have been the faces of the London Paralympic Games to date, and they deserve our credit and our great respect. May that continue in the course of the remainder of the tournament. I very much hope that will be the case. I'm sure it will, and I'm delighted to say that some of you have already got in touch with comments relating to the London Paralympic Games. And of course, just a few weeks ago we were celebrating the best Olympics for Team GB since 1908, and we were talking about the legacy of interest. And last week the then Culture Secretary Jeremy Hunt. I say then Culture because he was moved to the post of Health Secretary in the recent cabinet reshuffle. He was saying that as far as he is concerned, disabled sport should be promoted more readily within schools. So able-bodied students will have an opportunity to experience and experiment in disabled sports. And you think too of the seated volleyball, which was another mind-boggling spectacle. And the Team GB features one poor lady who was an innocent victim, one of the many innocent victims of the 7/7 bombing atrocities in London. She was seated close to one of the bombers. Her legs were blown off in the blast. She's always been a sports fan, and she has found her way into the seated volleyball team, which is nothing short of incredible. And I was watching that the other evening, and again I found it very humbling and moving, and I say that without being remotely schmaltzy. I also say, and I remember making this point when the Olympics were on last month, there is no edge or arrogance to the Team GB members. They're all thoroughly decent people. They're enjoying what they're doing. They're smiling as they're doing it, and of course playing to full crowds, packed crowds around the various Olympic sites can only help their cause. So well done to all our Paralympians. Moving from the Paralympics on to cricket for the time being at least, things are now simmering down following Andrew Strauss's retirement from all forms of cricket. This, of course, was announced last week. Strauss stood down owing to what he described as poor batting form. But I think it's fair to say that the text saga involving Kevin Pietersen can hardly have helped the situation. Strauss has, of course, been replaced by Alistair Cook, with doubts remaining regarding Petersen's future within the Test team. And once again, I can think of at least one comment that has come in relating to that saga. And of course, England have been taking on South Africa recently in a 3-test series. They lost the first one at the Oval, and unfortunately they lost the third one at Lord's. For a time it looked as if they might actually win that and salvage the draw that would have kept them at number 1 in the rankings. Unfortunately, that did not happen. And once again we have this situation of the South African captain, Graham Smith, seeing off an England captain. In the last decade he has effectively seen off Nasser Hussain, Michael Vaughan and Andrew Strauss. So I'm sure Alistair Cook hopes that he won't have to lead his side against South Africa too many times in the coming years. I happen to think, though, that Alistair Cook was the obvious choice to replace his great friend and opening partner, Andrew Strauss, as England captain. And of course, on the subject of cricket, we'll be taking a look shortly at the Ribblesdale and Lancashire leagues. And just in case you missed the start of the programme, my interview with Worley's Indian all-rounder Wilkin Motter took place last month, and that will shortly be available on YouTube. It was most enjoyable, most interesting, and Wilkin Motter is a complete gentleman, a really nice guy, very intelligent man. We didn't just speak about cricket, we moved on to talk about other things, including the London Olympics, which were still taking place at the time. So that is something I'm sure you will enjoy, and we will of course make all the various links available. The football season got underway almost 3 weeks ago. It seems hard to believe, doesn't it? We've been taken up with the cricket and with the London Olympics, both the main Olympics and of course the Paralympics, which are taking place now. And in some respects, I can't recall another season like it really. The football season has almost sneaked under the radar, but a few games have been played. It's still too early to make sweeping statements, but it's impossible at the same time not to reach certain conclusions, namely that Chelsea and the two Manchester clubs, City and United, are likely to be at the forefront of things in the 2012-13 season. Spurs certainly seem weaker post Harry Redknapp. What is going on at Liverpool? And there are, of course, a few early surprise packages. Swansea are doing well, West Brom likewise, and my beloved West Ham, apart from one disappointing result at Swansea, have started the season very impressively too. So a few of you have got in touch with your thoughts on that. You can, of course, get your thoughts in For inclusion on next week's programme, you can email simonkerronsportscall@gmail.com, simonkerronsportscall@gmail.com. So, easy for you to get in touch. You can also interact with us via Twitter, our address being @SKSportsCall. That's @SKSportsCall. One final thing I will say on the football front for now, before we have the main review, and we're also going to take a look at some of the predictions that you have sent in over the past few weeks. When we recorded the last programme, it was D-Day for Portsmouth. Well, I'm delighted to say that Portsmouth are very much still in existence there in League One for the first time in a few years, first time in the third tier for a while, but they are alive and kicking. That is the main thing, and hopefully Michael Appleton and his team will enjoy a far less turbulent season in 2012-13 than has been the case in recent years. Now, before we look at your predictions, just to round up a few other sports, Rory McIlroy stormed to victory in the US PGA at Kiowa Island, South Carolina a few weeks ago. That earned him his second major title following his breakthrough in last year's US Open, and he will be hoping for similar success at the end of this month when he is part of the Ryder Cup team for Europe, taking on the US at Medina in Illinois. That promises to be a very strongly contested affair. It always is, but I just feel that America are stronger this year than they have been for some time, but I'm still very hopeful that Europe will retain their title under new captain Jose Maria Olazabal. Rugby League, well, the last time we met we were talking about how absurd it is, in my opinion at least, that you can play over 20 games, top a league, and still not be guaranteed of the title. In Rugby League, if you do come top at the end of the normal regulation league period, you get the silver trophy, but you've still got to go through the playoffs for an opportunity to win the gold trophy. Well, Wigan Warriors, my beloved Wigan Warriors, came out on top with Warrington Wolves second. That's looked likely to be the case for a long, long time. They're into the playoffs along with 6 other teams. Who knows what will happen over the course of the next few weeks? The final will take place, if memory serves me correctly, in early October. Horse racing, well, if you're a horse racing fan, you will agree, I'm sure, that this is a vintage season. We have Camelot, who in a few weeks' time will bid to become the first winner of the Colts Triple Crown, the 2,000 Guineas, Derby and St Leger, since Nijinsky back in 1970. He will be taking part in the St Leger at Doncaster, but even Camelot has to play second fiddle to the great Frankel, who, when stepped up to 10 furlongs for the first time 2 weeks ago, recorded a stunning 7-length win in the Juddmonte International Stakes at York. 13 wins in 13 races, and his last race will almost certainly be in the Champion Stakes at Ascot in October. There was talk that he might go to Longchamp Paris for the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe. It was always against the odds, however, and trainer Sir Henry Cecil has decided that he will race instead in the Champion Stakes. And if you do follow horse racing, if you were watching the York meeting when Frankel did record that stunning victory, I'm sure, like me, you will have been moved and saddened at the sight of Sir Henry Cecil. He's been fighting cancer very bravely for the last few years. He'd seemingly got on top of things, but I understand that he has not been in the best of health lately. That was quite clear by his appearance at York, but all our very best wishes go out to Sir Henry Cecil, a giant, a legend, a true legend. Another word is bandied about excessively at the drop of a hat sometimes, but he is a true legend of the flat racing game, a credit to his sport. And all horse racing fans, I'm sure, join me in wishing Sir Henry Cecil all the very best. OK, we'll move back to football now, and before we round up the latest news regarding Blackburn Rovers, Burnley, Accrington Stanley and Clitheroe, that is because we are based here in the Ribble Valley in East Lancashire, but of course this broadcast is available to you wherever you live on the planet. but if we were going through the fortunes of every single club, then it might just take a little while. But all joking aside, before the season started, I invited some people, some trusty, esteemed pundits, to give me some predictions ahead of the 2012-13 season. I asked them for their 1, 2, 3, 4 in the Premiership, and also their choices for relegation, who was going to fall through the trapdoor. And we had 4 very, very interesting opinions, some similar, some rather different, and we shall be keeping tabs on the accuracy of those through the course of the season. There will be a prize for the winner, the person who is most accurate in their predictions. And the first contestant, if you like, is Carl, who you may recall featured in a few fans' forums 2 years ago in the days of Ribble Valley Media. He also contributed regularly to the show with his opinions. His top 4 is as follows. In first place, Manchester United. In second, Chelsea. In third, Manchester City. And in fourth, Arsenal. And for relegation, he tips West Ham, no chance. West Brom, well, they've started very well, as I said a few moments ago. And also Reading, who were last season's championship winners. Reading yet to record their first win of the campaign, but they have shown some promising signs. It promises to be an extremely difficult relegation battle. It's hard to say at this stage who will or will not be involved in it, just as it is hard to say in what order the top 4 will finish. Our next candidate is Cole, and Cole predicts Manchester City, which is hardly surprising since he's a lifelong supporter, followed by Manchester United, Arsenal and Chelsea. So Carl is saying Man United, Chelsea, Man City and Arsenal. Cole is saying Man City, Man United, Arsenal and Chelsea. As for relegation, he is saying Wigan, Reading and West Brom. Barry, this is interesting, particularly when we come to the relegation picks. Barry has gone for Manchester United to regain their crown, with Manchester City second, Chelsea third and Arsenal fourth. For relegation, and this was at the start of the season, he tipped Liverpool, Aston Villa and Southampton. Liverpool for relegation. Could that happen? Well, you tell me. We'll find out, of course, next May. But it's fair to say that they have not made the best of starts to the campaign, nor indeed of Aston Villa, although they will be buoyed by that 1-1 draw against Newcastle on Sunday. Southampton also tipped for the drop. Incidentally, Barry is the only person to tip Southampton for relegation. I'm sure they're going to flirt with it, but he's the only person to actually tip them to fall through the trapdoor. Next up we have Ollie, like Barry, and indeed Carl, a staunch Burnley fan. Ollie thinks Manchester United will be champions, Man City will be runners-up, Chelsea third and Arsenal fourth, just like Barry. However, for relegation, he tips West Brom, Norwich and Reading. And then it was left to yours truly to make his predictions. Now my tips: Manchester City to win, Manchester United second, Chelsea third and Arsenal fourth. You might think, well, that's hardly surprising or earth-shattering. My relegation tips, well, you probably could say the same about them. I fear for Wigan, Norwich and Reading. But I have no doubt that at various times this season, all 3 will cover themselves with glory. If you cast your mind back to the 2007-8 season, when if I remember correctly, Derby County only amassed 11 points. I don't think that is going to happen this season. I think it's going to be very open. I think the bottom teams are probably going to get to the high 20s, maybe even into the 30s in terms of points. Maybe to the mid-30s, who knows? It is going to be a real battle to stay up, just as it will be to prevail at the top of the table. One other prediction that I was asked to share with you, again before the season started. Ian in Worley, a die-hard Manchester United fan, said Manchester United would not lose a league game all season. Well, that, as Ian will know, and I haven't seen him since to remind him, which is probably why I haven't seen him, that was blown out of the water in the very first game when Everton defeated Manchester United 1-0 at Goodison Park, that goal coming from Marouane Fellaini. And Everton, of course, who have struggled to start seasons well in recent times, they've made a very promising start, winning their first 2 games, slipping up surprisingly against West Bromwich Albion at the weekend. But I'm sure they will take full advantage of the upcoming international break, and manager Davy Moyes will have them back to winning ways very, very soon. Coming on now to Blackburn Rovers, Burnley, Accrington Stanley and Clitheroe, our regular roundup of those clubs. Beginning with Blackburn Rovers, they've played 4, won 2 and drawn 2 thus far. They are out of the Capital One Cup. They lost to MK Dons last week, but I don't think Steve Keane and co will be too bothered about that, provided that they build on their promising start to the season. They're currently in second spot, just a point behind early season trailblazers Blackpool. And of course the big Blackburn story, apart from the fact that Steve Keane is still in post, is the signing of striker Jordan Rhodes from Huddersfield. Rhodes had a prolific season for the Terriers last year, scoring 40 goals as Huddersfield came up via the League One playoffs. He played for the first time for Rovers on Saturday in the 3-3 draw at Leeds. He didn't score, but I'm sure he will be on the score sheet very soon. He's already netted a couple of times for Huddersfield this season, and as I say, I'm certain he'll be finding the net regularly for Rovers in the coming weeks. What of Rovers then in the next few weeks? Well, on the 15th, Saturday the 15th, they're away to Bristol City before entertaining Barnsley on Tuesday the 18th, home to Middlesbrough on Friday the 21st of September. Now, Burnley started the season very impressively, defeating former manager Owen Coyle's Bolton Wanderers at Turf Moor. Unfortunately, it has not gone to plan since. They have lost their last 3 games. They are into the 3rd round of the Capital One Cup, facing a tricky away tie against Paolo Di Canio's Swindon Town. But of greater concern will be the need to get back on track in the Championship. Their next chance to do that comes on Saturday the 15th, when they entertain Peterborough, and then 4 days later they're away to promotion favourites Leicester City. So a difficult time for Burnley, and a few comments that have come in from you confirm that is the case. However, things have started extremely positively for Accrington Stanley in their first full season under new manager Paul Cook. They've won 3 of their 4 league games to date. They lost last night to Morecambe in the Johnston Pates Trophy, but they did not play a full-strength team. They obviously set out to win the game, but again, I don't think there will be too much weeping and wailing about that defeat, so long as Stanley maintain their positive start to the campaign. This Saturday they're at home to Bradford City. Then they face 2 away games on Saturday the 15th against Dagenham, and on Tuesday the 18th away to Chesterfield. And Clitheroe, in their first season under new manager Paul Moore, have made a very promising start, winning 3 and drawing 1 of their first 4 games. They last night defeated Moseley 3-2 away. So an excellent start for them. And on Saturday the Shawbridge side will travel to Skelmersdale in the first qualifying round of this season's FA Cup. It's hard to believe, isn't it, that the preliminaries and the qualifying for the FA Cup starts so early, but when you consider the number of clubs entering the competition, that explains why that is the case. I will be rounding up some football comments very shortly, along with some of the other sporting observations that you've sent in. But before doing that, it's time to round up the latest action in the Ribblesdale League and also in the Fosters Lancashire League. Both league titles, well, one's been decided, one hasn't, but they are very much in the final stages, the final week of the campaign. And Barnoldswick went into the weekend knowing that 1 win from their 2 weekend games would be enough to secure their first Ribblesdale League title in 20 years. and they spared themselves a nervous Sunday by comfortably winning their first game on the Saturday, which was at home to Salisbury. Here then are all the weekend scores, starting with Bonolswick. They were all out for 100 against Salisbury, but Salisbury in reply was skittled out for just 51. So Bonolswick won by 49 runs to seal that first title since 1992. Cherry Tree versus Ribblesdale Wanderers. Cherry Tree batted first, all out for 109. Ribblesdale in reply 110 for 4, as they won by 6 wickets. Earby versus Clitheroe. Clitheroe batted first, posting 241 for 8. Earby all out 143. Clitheroe winning by 98 runs. Aussie Emmanuel versus Great Harwood. Aussie batted first, 183 for 6. Great Harwood all out for 177. Very tight finish there. Aussie prevailing by 6 runs. Padiham versus Settle. Settle batting first, 205 for 9. Padiham all out 136. Settle winning by 69. Reed versus Edenfield. Reed 228 all out. They've been in terrific form lately. 228 all out. Edenfield out for just 49. Reed winning by 179 runs. Crushing win there. And last but not least, Worley, who have been in such great form themselves. 79 all out at home to Baxenden, last season's champions. Baxenden 83 for 1, winning by just 9 wickets. And so then to Sunday, Bonolswick versus Earby. Bonolswick, of course, had already clinched the title. The lap of honour proved to be a successful one. They were all out for 156 at home to Earby, but Earby all out for 149. Another exciting finish. Bonolswick winning by 7 runs to rubber stamp their title success. Baxenden versus Great Harwood. Harwood batting first, 224 for 6. Baxenden 161 for 8, as Harwood won by 63 runs. Clitheroe versus Ribblesdale. Clitheroe derby there. Clitheroe 147 for 6. Ribblesdale 112 for 8. Clitheroe triumphant by 35 runs. Edenfield versus Aussie Emmanuel. Edenfield 148 all out. Aussie 135 all out, as Edenfield won by 13 runs. Padiham versus Reed. Reed 179 for 9. Padiham 88 all out. Reed winning comfortably once again by 91 runs. One game and one game alone was abandoned, that between Salisbury and Settle. All the other matches went ahead. Last but not least, Worley versus Cherry Tree. Cherry Tree batted first, 80 for 8. Worley 82 for 2. A comfortable 8-wicket win for the Station Roaders. Understandably then, joyous scenes at Bonolswick as the side celebrated its first title success since 1992. However, there was added poignancy and emotion, as their captain Matt Nutter is the son of Ian Nutter, who was wicket-keeper when Barlick last won the title 2 decades ago. Ian Nutter died tragically in January at the age of just 65, following a fall from an Elson car park. You can imagine the emotion that Matt Nutter in particular felt at the weekend. So joy and poignancy mixed together. It's often the case in sport. Bonolswick winning that first title since 1992. In form, Reed have secured second place in the table. For a while it looked as if the main threat to Bonolswick might come from Baxenden, who were last season's champions, but in the end, Bonolswick have won comfortably with Reed in second place. And we'll be taking a more in-depth look at the final table in next week's show. Remember, there is just this week's final round of games to come on Sunday. Moving then from the Holsworth-Ribblesdale League to the Fosters Lancashire League, defending champions Lower House are 10 points clear going into the final round of games on Sunday. However, it is not as comfortable as it looked set to be. Lower House had gone 12 clear following the Saturday games, but surprisingly slipped up against town rivals Burnley at Turf Moor on Sunday. However, long-time challengers Enfield could not take advantage. They're the Baxenden of the Lancashire League this season. They've been well placed for most of the way, but ultimately seem to be heading backwards rather than forwards. They have been pushed out of second spot by Accrington, who now trail Lower House by those 10 points. So we have a thrilling three-way battle for the title. Lower House, Accrington and Enfield Church have moved into 4th place thanks to a derby win over Rishton, but Lower House still in the box seat, but they can't afford any slip-ups in the final game of the season. And once again, we shall be reviewing the final standings in next week's edition of SportsCall. So plenty to look forward to if you are a local cricketing enthusiast. Plenty to look forward to if you are a fans' thoughts contributor, because this is your moment, this is your time to get in touch, or this is your time certainly to listen and find out if I'm going to read out your comments. I've got half a dozen or so comments to read out relating to various sporting matters, which is just how I like it. Colin from Darwin, a regular contributor to the programme, says, "It's incredible to say this, but I'm finding the Paralympics even more inspiring than the able-bodied games. It's been fantastic, a joy to watch." Well, thank you, Colin, for getting in touch. I'm sure there are many people out there who echo your sentiments. I would imagine that Amanda does. Amanda from Blackburn says, "Hail Dame Ellie and Co. Fantastic." Now, Ellie Simmons is 17 years of age, and in the light of her success 4 years ago, and subsequent success, it must be said, was awarded an MBE. Well, who knows, she might go on to achieve even greater things. An OBE, you would think, is the likely next stage, but who's to say she won't one day end up a dame? I would say there's every chance that that will happen. Thank you, Amanda, for your comments there. Aidan from Preston, another regular contributor to the programme, says, "Kevin Peterson is a disgrace. Andrew Strauss is a lesson in dignity. England will miss him, but not KP." Interesting there, Aidan. Of course, Kevin Peterson, rather like Marmite, people either love him or they hate him. There is no doubt about it, he is a truly fabulous batsman, and I made the point on the last programme, but also in my interview with Wilkin Motter. But in my opinion, when KP is at his best, he is the best batsman in the world, but he does come, it must be said, with a fair amount of baggage, and no one can really condone his actions in the recent text message saga. So who knows if he will play for England again. My guess is that he probably won't. But given my luck with predictions and accumulators and horses in recent times, I dare say that makes him a certainty to return for the Tour of India. Only time will tell. Claret Eddie from Accrington says, "The promise of Burnley's win over Bolton has already long worn off. Concerned.com. Thank you, Eddie, for that. Of course, Burnley started the season so well. Great triumphalism as the Turf Moor team defeated former manager Owen Coyle on that first day of the season. But since then, Burnley have struggled to win. It must be said as well that Bolton have made an equally nervous and anxious start to the season. We've got a situation where Blackburn are in second spot in the table, but Bolton and Wolves already in the lower reaches of the Championship. Could this be one of those seasons when none of the relegated teams go up? Well, I'm sure Blackburn Rovers will be doing their best to buck that trend and avoid that happening. Certainly they have started the season very encouragingly. Tony from Blackburn is a Blackburn fan. Tony Blackburn, sensational. Yeah, we did that the last time, I seem to recall. He says, "I can't believe we've signed Jordan Rhodes. Then again, I can't believe we still have Steve Keane as manager. The problem is Keane will counteract anything good that we might otherwise do this season." And I know a few Blackburn fans who are very much in league with Tony there. The signing of Jordan Rhodes, quite amazing when you consider that in the transfer window last year, West Ham, Fulham and Everton were all strongly linked with him. And he goes and signs for a fellow Championship side. Maybe a few people have sussed him out, or they think they have sussed out Jordan Rhodes, and maybe Fulham and Everton, certainly West Ham obviously did decide that they could look elsewhere. From what I've seen of Rhodes, though, he is a natural finisher, the sort of player who can, however, go missing for large parts of the game but pop up with that crucial goal. They used to say the same about Gary Lineker, and he didn't fare so badly. And if Rhodes proves half as effective for Blackburn as Lineker did in his career at Everton, Tottenham, Leicester and Barcelona, then I think it's fair to say no Blackburn fans will be complaining. Ollie from Worley says, I'm seriously starting to question Eddie Howe. Brian Laws would have had far more stick after our last few games if he was still in charge, and especially after last Saturday's shocker. Thank you for that, Ollie. As I say, concerns about Burnley, I don't think for 1 minute they're going to end up in a relegation battle, but try telling that to the supporters who have seen them struggle to get anything from their last few games. They've won the first game and lost the last 3. Hopefully things will improve after the international break. And Matt in Accrington says, what a great start from Stanley. Exeter was the easiest game on paper and we lost it, but apart from that we have been terrific. Take a bow, Paul Cook. P.S. What's John Coleman up to these days? Well, John Coleman is managing Rochdale. Of course, he left Stanley last season to take over at Rochdale. Couldn't prevent them from dropping into League Two. And already at this early stage of the season, Rochdale trail Stanley. It'll be interesting when Stanley and Rochdale do battle, particularly at the Crown Ground. I have no doubt that John Coleman will get a terrific reception, and rightly so, bearing in mind all that he did during his time as Stanley manager. But the king is dead, long live the king. Paul Cook doing very nicely, thank you, in his first full season as manager of Stanley. Well, we're coming to the end of this week's edition of Sports Call, but before I say so long and see you next week, just a few bits of information to share with you. Remember, we've spoken in the past about the sponsorship slots for the 6 out-and-out features on Sports Call. Your opportunity to get involved, not just as a listener but also as a sponsor. It costs just £50 per slot, and obviously you get a great deal of publicity during the programme. You also get publicity on the Facebook and the Twitter references to the show. So that £50 per month, you'll get good value for that, I can assure you. If you have any particular sporting good causes, any charities or anything that you want bringing to our attention, then we are the vehicle for you. Get in touch with us and we will tell you, fellow listeners, here on Sports Call. Equally, in terms of causes, we are still trying to secure an interview with a local administrator to give us an insight into the financial issues that are plaguing many sporting organisations at the present time. In terms of guest slots and features, I've spoken already about how we're hopefully going to have a fans forum coming up in the not too distant future. The Wilkin Motta interview will be available for your listening pleasure very, very soon. There are more irons in the fire, more plots and plans in the pipeline as well. I'm not going to say too much at this stage. I hope, however, that it will be possible to do so in the course of the next few weeks. So basically, we've taken a look at the latest news in the world of sport. We've rounded up the latest from the London Paralympic Games, hot on the heels, of course, of the great success last month of Team GB and indeed the London event itself. The Olympic Stadium, of course, now, I think it's fair to say, regarded as one of the great sporting venues, and hopefully, before too long, my beloved West Ham will be able to play their home games there. Yes, I've grown up with Upton Park as my sporting spiritual home, but needs must, and I think it's fair to say, in order for West Ham to move to the next level, they do need to be in the Olympic Stadium. Hopefully that can be rubber stamped in the near future. We've looked at the latest news in the world of cricket and the world of football, particularly with regard to the local teams here in East Lancashire. But of course, you can get in touch about any team, about any sport, and I sincerely hope now the schools are back that you will start to do that, and we can actually share some school team news and charity donations and charitable campaigns and so on and so forth. Just think about it. This is free publicity in effect. You're emailing me to tell me that you're having a race night or some kind of fundraising event, some kind of sponsored event to raise money for a local good cause, and I will quite happily spread the word and make that as clear and as loud and as out there as I possibly can. So you have nothing to lose by getting in touch. If you want to get in touch about absolutely anything, very easy to do so. You can email simonkerransportscall@gmail.com. That's simonkerransportscall@gmail.com. You can interact via Facebook. If you're a Facebook friend, you can contact me. We do have a presence on Facebook, Simon Kerran Sports Call. You can also interact with us via Twitter, the address being @SK Sports Call. If you know the mobile phone number, you can ring me or send me a text message. Come up to me in the street and tell me your sporting opinions, and I will get them out on the next programme, which will be next week. So this is Simon Kerrans at 11:10 on Wednesday the 5th of September, signing off. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the programme. Please get involved. Thanks to those who have done. Please spread the word. Thanks to those who do. You've been terrific for listening, and I look forward to your company again very soon. All the very best for now. Thank you. Bye-bye.